Imagine being in a closed room, with a man in a white lab coat behind you, ordering. In front of you, someone is screaming in pain, but you can't see them. You're just pressing buttons. Today, we're going to explore one of the most terrifying experiments in modern psychology, the one that revealed how fragile our morality can be when faced with authority. In 1961, shortly after the trial of Nazi officer Adolf Eichmann, the world began to question how atrocities could have been committed by ordinary people. The excuse just following orders was no longer enough. It was that phrase that inspired Stanley Milgram to investigate how far human obedience can go. Milgram, a psychologist at Yale University, wanted to know how far someone would be willing to go in harming another person simply because an authority figure told them to. For that, he created an experiment disguised as a study on learning and punishment. He recruited ordinary men through newspaper ads. They were modestly paid to take part in a supposed study on memory. None of them knew they were about to become the subject of a dark psychological experiment. Upon arrival, they were introduced to another volunteer, who was actually an actor. Then, they took part in a rigged draw where they always ended up as the teacher. While the actor took on the role of the learner, the actor was taken to a separate room and strapped to a chair with electrodes. The real volunteer watched this happen. Then, he was led to a panel with a row of buttons, each representing increasing voltages from 15 to 450 volts. The volunteer received clear instructions. They were to administer an electric shock every time the learner answered a memory question incorrectly. With each mistake, the shock voltage would increase. However, the learner was not actually being shocked, but the volunteer didn't know that, and the actor, behind the wall, performed flawlessly. Screams, pleas, requests to stop, and eventually, total silence. As if he had lost consciousness or died. The panel included labels such as moderate shock, severe shock, and danger. Extreme shock. The final button was marked with a simple 30. This labeling made the volunteer question how far they were going, but few stopped on their own. When they hesitated, the researcher, an authoritative figure dressed in a white lab coat, would say standardized phrases such as, "Please continue. The experiment requires that you go on. It is absolutely essential that you continue. You have no other choice." These phrases were carefully designed to test the participants' psychological resistance. If the volunteer refused 4 times in a row, the experiment was ended. Otherwise, they were encouraged to continue. The most frightening part is that 65% of the participants went all the way, administering the maximum 450-volt shock, even in the face of the learner's desperate screams. They sweated, trembled, showed discomfort, but they obeyed. They were not cruel or violent people. They were ordinary citizens, workers, and family men. And yet, under the pressure of authority, they put someone's life at risk. At least, that's what they believed. After the experiment, many showed relief upon learning that the learner was an actor. Others tried to justify their actions by saying they were just following orders, or didn't he want to disrupt the progress of the study. Milgram published the results in 1963 and was immediately criticized by the academic community. Many considered it unethical to subject volunteers to such emotional stress. Others, however, recognized the disturbing value of the discovery. The experiment was replicated many times around the world and in different contexts. In all cases, a significant percentage of participants showed willingness to blindly obey authority, even against their moral principles. What this experiment reveals to us is unsettling. Obedience does not depend on evil intent, but on context, social pressure, and a firm voice saying it is necessary. In many cases, humans prefer to obey rather than confront. Decades later, Milgram stated that his findings did not reveal anything new, but exposed a truth that has always existed. In certain situations, ordinary people can become instruments of evil, not by choice, but by conformity. Milgram's study remains one of the most cited in the history of psychology, and has deeply influenced debates about ethics, responsibility, and even the rules that now limit experiments with human subjects. If you were in that room, with an authority figure behind you saying, "Continue," hearing screams on the other side of the wall, would you have stopped or pressed the next button? If this content made you think, subscribe to the channel for more true stories about the dark sides of human behavior. And comment below, how far would you go just because someone told you to?